This is a really good book. In a lot of ways, it's a kind of antidote to a lot of the self-help advice you'll read everywhere else on the internet, and indeed sometimes on this channel. And so in this video, I am going to try and convince you to read it yourself, but I'm also going to share the most important lessons I think I took from it, as well as the ways I think it can probably help you to stress a little bit less and concentrate on what matters in your life a little bit more. So the whole book is split into 28 chapters, and the idea is to read one chapter a day so that you can sort of ponder the ideas in it and let them sink in. And at 170 pages, it's actually pretty short, but that's actually kind of a good thing, because that means the author, Oliver Burkeman, has really spent his time not just reading and researching, but distilling the ideas he's come across into really actionable, usable lessons that you can put into practice pretty much straight away. And so the overarching idea of the whole book is that you'll get a lot more out of life once you embrace the idea that you're never going to sort everything out and never have a perfectly organized system that lets you fit everything you want to do in. Or as Burkeman says, it's about how marvelously productive you become when you give up the grim-faced quest to become more productive, and how much easier it gets to do bold and important things once you accept that you'll never do more than a handful of them. So it's split into 4 weeks, each of them with a different theme. The first week is about embracing the finite nature of life, and I think the most important idea in here is that there's no state of perfect life optimization where you're going to be able to do absolutely everything that you've always wanted to do. One of my favourite metaphors in this section is the idea of kayaks and super yachts. We all want to be at the helm of one of those huge floating mega palaces just sailing serenely through the water, but in reality we're just steering little kayaks on in unpredictable currents, just trying to cope as well as we can as we're buffeted around by forces we can't really control. So my favourite piece of advice in this section is to pick one thing to do today that would be good enough. Not like the perfect thing or the most optimised thing, but the thing you're actually willing to do. Because as Burkeman says, that's the only step you can realistically take towards becoming the sort of person who does that sort of thing all the time. The second week is about finding ways to take action. And something Burkeman gives a really clear name to here is the idea of just going to the shed, which is kind of his way of talking about confronting the things that make you anxious. So the idea is that if you've got to clear out a shed that's full of stuff and you keep putting it off, then it becomes this huge, terrifying task in your mind. But if you just pop in to have a look at it, you can see what the easy wins are and where you can make a start. Then, when it's time to actually clean the shed for real, you know what you're in for and it's all a lot less stressful. And this is something I've found with everything from tax bills, to making speeches, to relationships with friends and family. Whatever the situation is, it helps if you're at least aware of it as soon as possible so that it becomes less intimidating. Part 3 of the book is about letting go. And that means a lot of different things. It might be about the idea of letting go of the need for everything important in your life to feel difficult and challenging. Or it might be about letting go of the idea that interruptions to your carefully planned out schedule are necessarily going to be a bad thing. So an example that really resonates with me here is, sometimes I'll be in the middle of like a 25-minute Pomodoro of deep work, and my son comes upstairs to show me something he's made at school or a little art project he's working on. And under those circumstances, it would be crazy to just tell him to go away because daddy is in the middle of some deep work. And that's something that can kind of apply to relationships and like other serendipitous things that can happen in your life as well. You don't want to ignore what's going on in life just because you think you've worked out the perfectly optimized system. For me personally, I think the most impactful chapter here was about letting go of the need to feel like a good person and just committing to doing occasional good things when and where you can. So maybe rather than planning to research the most impactful charity to donate to and never quite getting around to it, you just donate a little bit of money whenever and wherever you can. This is actually something I recently did by signing up for the RSPB. Like, maybe there are more efficiently altruistic charities to donate to, but I like birds, the RSPB are doing good work with birds, and so I decided to support them. And bonus, I get a load of cool stuff about birds to show my kid. Or maybe rather than planning to sit down and write a long email to someone you've fallen out of touch with, but not getting round to it because it feels intimidating, you just send them a little note at the moment you think of them and let things snowball from there. And then the fourth week is about showing up. And I think the idea that kind of unifies this whole section is that life is what's happening while you're planning to optimize things and train and study and plan for the future. And this is something I've always kind of struggled to find a balance with myself. Because obviously I want to build the best life I can for my family, and there are a bunch of things I want to get good at for the future, but also I'm aware that it's kind of important to enjoy life in the moment. because after all, you don't actually know how long your life is going to be. And so the bit of advice that really resonated with me here is to stop being so kind to future you, which I think contradicts a lot of self-help advice, which is all to sort of do things that future you would be grateful for. And so what that really means to me is embracing those little moments of happiness that present themselves from day to day. But I think it also means trying to treat things like piano practice as a fun thing to do in themselves, rather than a stepping stone on the path to some future ideal. And this sort of dovetails with some things I already do, where I'll say, spend the first half of a practice session like working on the stuff I need to improve at, and then the second half just doing the things I find fun. But I'm definitely going to try and do more of it. And to be honest, I don't think anything that's in this book makes any self-help advice you might have read elsewhere worthless. It's just a helpful filter to look at it through so that it stresses you out a little bit less. And I think a good example of that is how it ties in with this book by Cal Newport, where he talks about the value of doing fewer things but making them higher quality. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I've got a video about it right here. I will see you over there.